All right, we are live. Welcome back to the OG Rivals podcast. I am your host, Miles Teddick. I'm joined today by Andy from the NFL Outdated. That is NFL Outdated on Twitter and YouTube. Welcome back. We haven't done the podcast in a while, but this is a podcast dedicated to the OG of rivalries in all of sports, the Packers and the Bears. And we got a big matchup this weekend, so I wanted to dive in. I wanted to bring the pod back up. We haven't been in every week this season. We've had some stuff going on. Sir Miguel Prado's got a busy life going on, so we wish him all the best, but we've got some football business to take care of. So very grateful that Andy is able to join us here tonight and not only represent NFL Outdated, but the Bears, of course. So welcome, sir. How you doing?
A little bit better, hopefully, if the Bears pull out this win. But I definitely appreciate you inviting me. And I do have to say, even from a Bears perspective, I want it to be a rivalry. It hasn't. I do also have to say the last time the Bears did beat your Packers, I had a little bit more hair. So I'm hoping that that can be restored a little bit sooner than rather than later. I appreciate you coming on. I mean, you've been on my Freezing for NFC North podcast, and definitely enjoy your takes and enjoy talking this rivalry. There's a lot of intrigue, and there has been, since week 1, and it really going into this week 18. What else could you want from this type of game? When there's going to be some high stakes.
High stakes indeed. I mean, playoffs are on the line. It doesn't get higher than that until you're in the playoffs. So, very excited, man. Always had fun on the Freezing 4 podcast. We always have a good time. But that is 4, and today we are focused on 2. We don't have to jump around to those other 2 in the division and get all distracted with their nonsense they got going on. We get to focus on the OGs, the OG rivalry, the Packers and the Bears. So we're gonna get into some of the hot topics, right? We're gonna jump into the Justin Fields versus Jordan Love debate. We're gonna get into some of the Packers Bears this weekend, the matchup. What's it gonna take for either team to win? And we're gonna clean up each other's street a little bit. You got to clean up the other side of the street, see what the Bears need to clean up, see what we Packer fans might need to clean up. Looking forward to that. So really, let's dive right in, man. Both teams were setting out into 2023 with kind of similar objectives, if you will, goals maybe, outlooks, and wanting to learn similar things, right? Is your quarterback the guy or is he not? And what's it going to take probably after this season to make the playoffs? I don't think either team was coming into the season thinking we're getting in the playoffs. Oh, goodness, got my mic there. We're getting in the playoffs this year. And so now the Packers have a shot here. We've got a shot to get into the playoffs. The Bears just got eliminated. But as a Bears fan, is this a successful season for you?
Yeah, I mean, that is a fantastic question. When I did my preseason predictions, I looked at this team and I looked at the trajectory, and this was really a year 2 of a 3-year rebuild from the front office and Ryan Poles and just what we had to do roster wise and all the turnover and the young players and things like that. And so I went into the season looking at 8 to 10 wins is what I was thinking, and potential playoffs. But I thought, if they didn't, get there, that's fine. And so you kind of look at what's happened, and obviously now we're sitting at 7-9, and it's not, necessarily what Bears fans and I want. But when you take a step back and as a Bears fan, as a realistic Bears fan, I try to be that, most of the time. Right. And it's really has been a successful season. I mean, when you look at all the challenges, right? Justin Fields has been out was out 4.5 games. And, really, from game 1, you have Luke Getsy and the coaching staff really trying to assert themselves and not doing a good job in week 1. And even with everything that Justin Fields, finding out is he the guy and all of that, and you kind of get into the season, and we had 3 wins where the coaching staff let us down, right? And so you look at it, we're at 7-9 now. But quite easily could have been, 10-6. It really, it just, it flips that way. And that's why you kind of look at the totality and not just week to week where you're in it and you're frustrated. You look at the whole thing. And when you look at that as a Bears fan, but even as kind of an analyst, you say, okay, well, this team is right there. It's on the cusp. Adding DJ Moore was huge, huge.
I
And
give
so
you that.
I I like that. But the most important addition this year has been Montez Sweat. I mean, that defense has just been night and day. Not only on the front end, but even on the back end. The cornerbacks. All these players are starting to be able to free up to do some of the things that they're good at. And when you look at all of the draft picks that Ryan Poles brought in from last year's draft, this past draft, we have a lot that are starting to hit. I mean, obviously you got the first rounder lineman, right? But I also have Javon Dexter, Tyreek Stevenson, some of these players that are starters that are really starting to catch on and really kind of grow. And so you look at that totality from the start of the season 0-4 to now, being 5-2 the last 7. It's really huge, and so it's hard to say successful and not make the playoffs, but really with what's happened and transpired, it has been. Now, the one caveat is you have to beat the Packers. You just have to beat the Packers. I mean, it's just
That's what I was hoping to hear.
you cannot go into the offseason with this cloud. Obviously, Packer fans saying we own you for an entire offseason. You just cannot have that. And so, you know, if the Bears were to lose this Sunday, I maybe in a couple weeks be able to step back and say it still was a successful season. But really, this game is huge. It's huge just for the psyche of the fans, but even for that team, and then even for the future of the coaching staff and for Justin Fields. So it's a really big game for the Bears, even though we don't have the playoffs on the line.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think this one is really in Justin Fields' head. You can see it in his body language. He looks like a different player when you're either talking to him about the Packers or he's playing the Packers.
Mm-hmm.
So I do feel like this is a hump he needs to get over. I'll tell you, I'm excited that this game is in Lambeau.
Mm.
I think if this game is in Soldier Field, I feel a little different about it, and I'm glad as a Packers fan that we went there first. Week 1, man, everything's in disarray, even for good teams. So if there's a week to go on the road somewhere and try to steal one, that's the way to do it. But yeah, it is interesting. I don't think that there's any Packers fans, at least the folks that are paying attention and really have a good perspective on things, that are overly confident about this game. Now we'll get into some predictions later. We won't get into that right off the bat, but as far as the Packers season goes, I've already said I think we could lose to the Bears this weekend, and that would certainly not be a success in itself. Not okay with that. But the season as a whole, even if they lose this weekend, has been a success. Jordan Love's the guy. I think out of all things, that was the thing that you really wanted to know. And it's certainly a success if he is the guy. If he's not the guy, it's like, oh no, now you're back to square one. So yeah, I think because of that alone, this season's a success. But because now you can look further and they have a chance to make the playoffs here. Jordan Love's first season as a starter has already been more successful than Rodgers' first season as a starter, or Rodgers in 2022, which I think a lot of people were kind of arguing about whether that was possible or not. Put that one to bed. It has happened. And so for me as a Packer fan, I'm giddy because I'm playing with house money right now. You know what I mean? And if we make the playoffs this year, that's excellent. You can be a one and done, and that's a win. But everybody knows once you're in, anything can happen. We've seen that before. So let me ask you this. This is a kind of along the lines of success, but from the other perspective, are you as a Bears fan looking at this Packers team and going, "Uh-oh, they're going in the right direction"? Is there a little intimidation there, or are you comfortable with what you see?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's. I wouldn't say intimidation is the right word, but frustration, right? I mean, and quite deservedly so with the Bears, ownership in the past. They've taken so long to get where they're at now, and the
Yeah,
Packers have, they've done it they've been able to kind of transition successfully, and
yeah,
obviously, Love is better than I thought he was, and he still has some question marks as well. But you look at the big thing with Love, and the smart thing with the Packers organization is they've surrounded him with a veteran coaching staff now, and offensive minded coaching staff, and they've put him in good places to succeed. Like even in week one, and I know in the losing streak, some of the Packer fans kind of like, oh well, LaFleur is terrible, fire him. But no, I mean he really has overall put Love, and the organization has put Love in a position to succeed, and that's what you want from a young quarterback. So frustration to see the Packers kind of do this so quickly,
yeah,
and not be like a okay, well, we're 3-4 win team in Love's first year starting. So a little frustration, a little bit of jealousy, obviously as well. But I agree with you. Even from the outside, the Packers season is a success. It has to be looked at that way, regardless of what happens on Sunday.
yeah. No, I think so. Now, there's obviously there's plenty of delusional Packer fans out there, and there's still people that want to fire the GM, still people want to fire the coach, still people that think Jair needs to go, still people that think Love needs to go. And those are all fine. They're just invalid. You're allowed to have those opinions. But yeah, I think anybody who's trying to say the season's not a success is just not paying attention, or just not being honest about it. So, yeah, playing with house money is how I really
Mm-hmm.
think I feel about this whole situation. Um, so this is a good time to jump into the clean up your street, right? Like we're kind of
Mm-hmm.
already leaning into that. So
Mm-hmm.
what is it? What is it that you think that the Packers fans need to clean up on our side of the street?
I think just, yeah, I mean, being grateful for what you have, right? And just,
Yeah.
the expectations of like, okay, well, we're gonna, win the Super Bowl every single year, just the ups and downs. And, and obviously we'll get into field stuff later. But I think it, when they start losing the Giants, and, start to lose teams that you were supposed to win against, just to say, oh, the house is on fire again. You need to just, it's almost like you need one of those Aaron Rodgers relax things.
Yeah, right.
You can't, just because a team loses doesn't mean they're suddenly horrible again. As a
Right.
Bears fan, I wanted to see that, right? Um, but they're still in position, and they put themselves in position, winning some games, close games, and early on that really kind of set them up for where they're at now. So really cleaning that up as far as a fan. I mean, just you know, enjoy where you're at, and enjoy that your team, your franchise has been successful. Has and not only with a Hall of Fame quarterback, but with a first year starter. I mean, that doesn't happen. I mean, look at the Jets, right?
Man.
They've continued to flounder. I mean, now they're going to get rid of Zach Wilson, and obviously they're going to have Aaron Rodgers, but who knows what he's going to be coming back. So quarterback is a difficult. It's one of the most. I mean, it's the most important position in the NFL, but it's one of the most difficult to find. And obviously, right now it does look like Love is not only competent, but he can be good. Just really being thankful, and just kind of not being too high or too low.
I think that's a great. That's nice, man. Like I feel like we're like almost not doing this podcast justice because we're like being too pleasant about that. I agree. I totally agree. We've got to be grateful for what we've got here. It really is special in this season to be able to be in, going for the playoffs, knowing you've at least got a competent quarterback right now in Jordan Love. There's a lot of things that we didn't necessarily expect to have or know right now that we do, and it's exciting. I'm pumped about it, and yeah, I mean, you got to be a little bit frustrated as an outside fan, going like,
I
God, dog, at
I
three in
do.
a row? Are you serious? What?
I'm not ready to say three in a row yet, but the one other thing I'd clean up as well. Obviously, we do trash talk on Twitter, on social media, everything about
Oh yeah,
quarterbacks. And the one thing I think that a lot of, well, actually two things that Packer fans really kind of lean into or rely on too often is oh, you haven't won anything since 1985 debate, right? So that's the number one. Number two
okay,
is, and I'm sure we'll get into the field stuff, but relying on Fields' record and kind of going back and saying, oh, well, this is his total record. And I think as a fan, obviously, you support your team, and I support my team as well. But
oh yeah,
when you're a smart fan, you can realize, okay, well, these things things do not happen in a vacuum, right? You
right,
know, wins. It is not a quarterback stat. It just isn't. And obviously, a lot of people debate me on that, but it's when you look at roster, when you look at coaching, all those things come into it. I mean, because
it does, it does.
if it doesn't, I mean, you could say, well, Aaron Rodgers isn't really that good. He only won one Super Bowl in 2010. So I guess he's not that good. You
That's
know,
fair, yeah. And he had a
but
lot of bad defenses he had to deal with for sure.
yes.
Yep.
Yes. And Fields has done that as well. He's dealt with that. And, last year, 2022, Equanimous St. Brown was his top receiver, so there's a lot of things that you can kind of go with, on some of those things. So I think just kind of diving into it, and obviously yourself and a lot of other smarter Packer fans,
Thank you.
come back with some good stuff, and so just not relying on those kind of lazy takes, right? And I hear the Bustin Fields and all that, and it, and it maybe sounds cute, right? And maybe Fields has a lot to grow in,
Yeah.
but you cannot say absolutely at all that Justin Fields is a bust, right?
Okay.
He had two back to back this season, 4 touchdown passing games. And that is a stark contrast to Zach Wilson, right?
No doubt.
Who is a bust, right?
No
So
doubt.
and I get you want to try to get under a Bears fan skin, but it just, it's not factually correct. He is not a bust.
I agree.
So there you go.
I agree. No, I'll back you up on that. I think, and I've been consistent about this with Justin Fields from day one, because I still remember watching him at Ohio State and actually saying to myself, "God, don't let him go to the Bears." Here we are. But yeah, I've seen it, right? I've seen, like, yeah, he's had. I mean, you guys had a historically bad defense last year. He was running for his life. He didn't have an offense. He just had some guys hanging out in front of him. You can't evaluate a quarterback in that situation. You just can't do it. I will have probably like a debate with boundaries on the wins being a quarterback stat, because I think that there's just, context or scenario where it is kind of a quarterback stat, and actually we haven't left clean up your side of the street yet. Hang on. I was about to move on, but we shouldn't do that yet. Because I want to talk about Bears fans too. I don't have a big bone to pick because I've had some fun with Bears fans, but
that's okay. We have some there are some dirty streets in Chicago, so go ahead.
Hey, clean compared to New York, though. So,
yeah.
But yeah, so as far as, Chicago fans cleaning up their side of the street, I will say the one, and I'm glad it's relevant this week, that needs to be addressed is that there's nothing else to do in Green Bay. I was like, guys, you just like, you're missing the plot here, all right? Like, we can't pretend that Lambeau Field is filled with people from Green Bay, Wisconsin every week. There are people coming from everywhere to go to that stadium.
There are, and I will, so I did get a chance to go to all 4 training camps this summer, and
cool.
the NFC
Yeah.
North, and so I did go, and obviously I like to poke fun at the Packer fans. It was food wise and some other things, it was kind of the worst in the NFC North, and
Okay.
it was interesting because I think the biggest thing is everything in Green Bay points to Lambeau Field,
Pretty
right?
much. Yeah.
And it was interesting because I did go ahead and take the Lambeau Field tour and all that stuff, and I was
Very
wearing my
nice.
Iowa stuff, so I was incognito a little bit. But you know, I did the tour after the training camp, and there were some people on the training camp that said, "Oh, we didn't even know that," or they were on the tour that said, "We didn't even know training camp was happening." So basically, it happened at the Don Hudson Center there, and there's people didn't even know, and so it was a little bit more subdued.
Hmm.
But there's plenty to do. I have friends that live in Green Bay. There's plenty to do in Green Bay. Logistically, I can see where people say that though, because it's hard to get in and out of Green Bay. That's probably the biggest thing, but there really is plenty to do in Green Bay. I would agree with you.
Yeah. No, there's plenty, and not just Green Bay. I mean, really, Wisconsin's a pretty neat state, and it's
Hmm.
it's pretty
I
easy
do
to
live in
travel it.
Wisconsin, so
Oh, I didn't know you actually lived in
I
Wisconsin.
do. Yes,
Nice. Okay. Yeah. There's
not nice for
plenty.
me all the time, but
Yeah, I bet. No, there's plenty of Bears fans nestled in Wisconsin. I know that. But yeah, so that's the one that it just it sort of makes me shake my head. And I will say, I guess if you're going to the four NFC North destinations, now did you go to where their training camp was? We're not talking like Chicago, Detroit, Minnesota, or I mean, Minneapolis.
yes, I did, and really the best one was Minnesota, just because of the
Okay.
setup of where the complex is just amazing where
Where
they
did the
have it set
Bears
up.
go?
So the Bears, it used to be in Bourbonnais, and oh gosh, I can't even think of the name of the town, but it was just outside, and it was
Okay.
it they did a good job, with kind of the music and everything. They had, a DJ, and they had lots of food vendors and everything. That's the one thing about the Packers, and I don't know if it was just because it was an off day, or the focus. I think for Green Bay is the family day. I think that's the main one.
It
But
really
the
is.
regular days, it's just kind of like they have it, that practice stadium,
Mhm.
and they just had the one booth, and I actually ended up getting a brat, and I had a picture on my Facebook that was like, it was a shriveled brat. I'm like, really? This is what you got? But and the music was cutting out and everything. So I think the focus, it seems to be for the Packers, is on that family night, which they do probably better than any other team. I would agree.
Yeah.
So that's probably the difference.
Okay. Okay. I would have guessed Chicago. I mean, I lived in Chicago for a couple years. The food there is so good, and I would expect that they would be able to put on a decent production for training camp. But Minnesota doesn't surprise me.
Detroit was
Um,
was pretty good too. Although
cool.
they were they were very stringent about any pictures or video, any picture
Yeah.
of practice, and I was surprised they were coming up into the stands and telling us to not do anything, and not take pictures. It was really really odd.
Well, actually,
Um,
I'm glad to hear that because
mhm.
there's a lot of Packers fans that are irritated because that's the treatment you'll get at training camp for the Packers too.
Mm.
And I guess I kind of get it, but at the same time, I mean, what are you really accomplishing there?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah. So I do remember that at Packers camp, they were saying that, but they weren't as stringent. Like, they weren't
Yeah.
actually coming into the stands,
Okay.
during that. But the Lions, they had people who were doing that. And the whole thing was, about Matt Patricia and Bill Belichick. And it's like, yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, they're just on NFL Network, they're showing video of it. So
Yeah.
I didn't get that either. So I agree.
Yeah. And I mean, you could just as well send a scout there. He doesn't have to record to take some important information. So, yeah, Packers fans and Packers Twitter has been pretty vocal about that. They've got their grievance about that. But I guess I didn't know that was happening at other training camps, so we don't feel as picked on now.
It's going to be interesting. Obviously we kind of got a little bit off track here, but
Yeah, right.
as far as the draft wise, because when you look at the Packers, they probably do have the best access to the players. I mean, if anyone who knows that, they've got
Absolutely.
the riding the bikes to the field and everything, and really they've only got a couple of barriers up, which are closer to the practice facility. there's the long street where anybody can just go right up to the players and talk to them, autographs. And so I actually almost got, I have a football where I got all the NFC North autographs.
Oh,
And
cool.
I got a few. I almost got
Okay.
Christian Watson's autograph, but he just finished before me. I actually got some Arture's
Okay.
autographs, so it's probably my fault that he hasn't done good this year.
You cursed him.
Um, but so logistically, it's going to be interesting for the draft. That way. But when you look at just the way that all these teams try to approach it, the Packers do a good job of allowing fans and trusting fans to be to access players, which is
Yeah.
you don't see a lot. Definitely not in with Minnesota. They were pretty locked down.
Well, and even when Rogers was still there, you got him driving his golf cart around Green Bay, and it really is. It's such a neat atmosphere because it's it's a bunch of homes, and then there's the local football team, and it's pretty neat. You definitely can't find that around any of these major city and metropolitan teams. I mean, my goodness, what they've done with the Cowboys down here where I live is just incredible. It's impressive, but it's also just wild and out of control. So yeah, that we could go way off topic on Jerry
Yeah,
World and all his
I'm
stuff,
sure.
but yeah. So let's hone it back into where we were before because we were already kind of teasing at this a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but man, the question that I've got, and I think that Bears Twitter is probably still in the heat of this debate. Is Fields the guy?
That's a great question. And, ask my guy, a seventh letter on the podcast, the Lions guy on our podcast, the Freezing Four.
Shout
I've
out Seventh
been,
Letter. What's up, man?
yep, great guy. A lot of great takes. And I've been in on Fields from the get go, right? And does he have some deficiencies in his game? Absolutely. And Seventh Letter points this out all the time. His turnovers, right? Especially in the fourth quarter, he's got a lot of those. The fumbles and everything. But if you look at the growth, even from last year to this year, he has really, started to kind of turn a corner, especially, even before he got injured, the back-to-back 4 touchdown passing games. It really helped to have DJ Moore. That has been huge. So he's shown, steps that way. He's even been more accurate with some deep balls, and that's obviously the thing, and that's what I detest that, he's a runner, he's not a thrower,
Yeah. No, he's got an
Yes,
arm. He
he
does have an
does,
arm.
and even in the snow, this last game, in the corner. Touch pass right to a rocket, actually touch pass right to DJ Moore in the snow, and so he can do that. The things that he needs to improve on are the easy things, right? In some of the short passes and obviously throwing guys open and some of those things. But you kind of look at where he's grown and you see positive steps. I see positive steps. And having the weapons help. The one thing that a lot of Packers maybe don't know, maybe don't want to know, is that Getsy, they changed Fields' footwork in the offseason, right?
Okay.
And that's kind of been one thing I think that's hindered him, and that's one of the things that Bears fans, why one of the reasons why Bears fans want Getsy to be gone. I mean, they've tried to, you can't take a quarterback with all of his talents and try to make him an Aaron Rodgers. He's
No,
not.
he's not. No.
With everything that he showed, even last year with versus the Dolphins with Chase Claypool, his first game versus just Claypool having the threat of another receiver who turned out to not be good, right?
Yeah. Right.
He went off, and a big part of it was his feet, right? So he is able to not only make some of those throws, those tough throws, but even you look at this past game in Week 17, right? He keeps his balance. He's able to elude some tacklers that, some of these younger, smaller quarterbacks aren't able to do, right? And so I've seen enough flash where I'm just like losing my mind. Like, how did he do that? Like, he's a magician. Keeping plays alive and hearing from defenders, NFL defenders to say he is difficult to defend. And it's hard to enough that way.
Yeah.
Now, does he have some things to clean up? Absolutely.
Sure. Nobody's
But
perfect.
absolutely. But the biggest thing I would say is the leadership, right?
Yeah.
And you look at, obviously Bears have the number 1 pick coming up. And you have like Caleb Williams, and you look at this, and all these draft experts are salivating over him. He's, the next coming of whatever,
Right.
He's smaller than Fields,
Yeah.
Fields is 6'3", I believe he's 6'1". But the biggest thing is that leadership. Fields has not shied away from the media. He's dealt with these questions, these ups and downs, gracefully, and just, he's kind of, taking it all in and all that, and said, hasn't thrown his teammates under the bus. He did finally, there was a point where he talked about coaching, right? But he walked that back as well. He's
Might have been needed.
Yeah, it was needed.
Yeah.
And you have a young guy like Caleb Williams, who has shied away from the media even in college. So I think Fields is the guy, and maybe they end up giving him like a deal like Love, to continue to prove it, right? So I am all in on Fields. Obviously there are a lot of people who are not. Even in within Bears fans, but when this past game, week 17, everyone, fans chanting, "We want Justin."
Yeah, I saw that.
And I think it's kind of been the narrative. Obviously, that. I mean, the media kind of has narrative. They want clicks and everything too, and so let's just say, everybody's no one likes him in Chicago. Well, that's just not the truth.
Yeah. No, I mean, it just seems very divided in Chicago. That's why I think it's still a very relevant question. Like, what's going on? You do have this shot at Caleb Williams, who I'm, when you talk about wins being a quarterback stat, I'm like, listen, if this is, the prodigy everybody says he probably should have won more games in college. But not many people want to have that conversation. They just want to talk about how good he is. So if I'm in Chicago's position, I think I'd want Justin Fields. I don't think I would want Caleb Williams. I'd rather give Justin Fields another premier asset, and with that draft pick, or if you're going to trade back, try to go get that Marvin Harrison Jr. or whatever, a tackle or whoever it is that you need. But yeah, I would be leaning towards Justin Fields. I think he's the guy. I think he does have the intangibles. He may not be the perfect quarterback. Who is?
Mm-hmm.
But just from a Packers fan perspective, dude, I want you to draft Caleb Williams. Send Justin Fields out of here, man. Go draft Caleb Williams, blow it up, and start all over, and give yourself another 5 years setback.
See, yeah, that's the biggest thing too, right? Okay, we've signed, Montez Sweat. We've got DJ Moore. We've got with what the Bears are starting to build, we could win now. Continue, really start to build, and, just restarting with a young quarterback. I mean, that's hard as a Bears fan as well, even as a fan, to be like, oh, great, we got to do this again. We got to, all right, we got to be on Team Caleb or Team Drake May or whoever it is, and let him develop, and, all of that. And when we've seen glimpses of what Fields has, and maybe you're like this with Jordan Love as well. I mean, there's obviously he's shown a lot of great things this year, but he's also shown some things, like I always joke on Twitter, the drunk stumble, right? Or the passing right to the Raiders player, and
that was a bad game.
It was, but that's the thing, young quarterbacks are going to have bad games.
Yeah.
And so just not getting too high or too low, but looking, does this player have what it takes to take your team to the next level? And that was the thing too, even with the, Bears and Vikings game, right? Fields had some, tough tough turnovers and things like
Yeah.
that. And that was probably that game. I was probably one of the most frustrated I had been with Fields. I was like, oh, no, but he made just a dart to DJ Moore
Yeah.
when it mattered. And so that's what, as Bears fans, that's what we've been asking for. Can
True.
he do it when it matters? And he did,
Yeah.
and the Bears won the game. So, I mean, that's what you want from your quarterback.
Totally. I mean, that's what made Aaron Rodgers so lethal for so long, right? It was like, gosh, you give that guy a minute and a half at the end of the game, you always end up paying for it. It was just money in the bank.
Mm-hmm,
You knew
mm-hmm.
what you were going to get, and you still need the team around him, right? Because when Aaron Rodgers didn't have a good offensive line, he didn't play well. When he had a bad defense, they got the raw end of the deal, and they ended up not getting to the Super Bowl for whatever reason. There's a few instances we can go into, but yeah, you still need that whole package, and that's where, like, if you're the Bears right now, and Ryan Poles he's put himself in a heck of a position, not necessarily a bad one, but you got to make the right decision here, man. If you don't, you it could be bad news Bears. Not to, no pun intended there.
Well, no, that's a great point, because that is the, going back on, Chicago radio too. Is it, stay with Fields to win now? Because I mean, I think Poles does need to start getting a stack of wins. I think that's huge,
Yeah.
especially versus the Packers. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just unacceptable, with where we're at. It just really is. Or is it self-preservation to go ahead and draft a rookie quarterback and say, oh, we've got a rookie quarterback. It doesn't matter if we win. Bears fans, we want to win now. It's been like the last year I could understand it. We were,
you were a mess last year, man.
We
you were
we
so
were
many holes. You could just let it go.
Absolutely. And I just don't think I can do that again as a fan, or even someone like studying the team. Be like, okay, we got to do this again. And so, I think they need to win now, not just for the fans, but for the front office. And you got Kevin Warren in there, and we're not really 100% sure what he is yet. He's kind of, he's been doing stories, and he's kind of more interested in how he's perceived and everything like that. So he's kind of an odd duck, but he's a smart guy. He's made some right moves, and so I think he's not afraid to ruffle feathers, and I think he wants a winning atmosphere on his resume as well. So I think we just have to win now.
Okay. Yeah, and I'd have to agree. If you're going to try to win now, I think you got to stick with Fields. And, take it from like a resume perspective, right? Like, if you're going to just compare what you're going to put at quarterback next season, all right, well, you could spend your first overall pick and get this Caleb Williams fella, and, he's got some pretty good pedigree here. Or you could not use a first-round pick, and you could stick with the guy that has now 4 years of NFL experience, right? This is fourth year?
Third year.
Okay, 3 years of NFL experience. 2 years in the system, right? Assuming you don't change systems in the offseason, which could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I think at that point, unless he's a liability, he's the guy.
Yeah.
And we can smoothly transition into this, and let me position it this way for you. All right, straight up, love for Fields. Are you making the trade?
I am not.
No, really.
I am not. I'm sticking with Fields.
Okay.
And I get it. And I look at this game, on Sunday, the Week 18 game, and with what Love has done, when he has the ball, he has shades of Rodgers. There's a little bit of terrified a little bit. Okay, well, he's got that big arm. I mean, I have shades, almost like flashbacks and of Week 1. I mean, who was that long pass to? It was like right away, wasn't it? Like the first pass.
Was that to Wicks, right, or Reed? I think it might have been Reed.
It was. I mean, just right away, and it was like that kind of like I went into Week 1 like, and obviously Trevor and all.
I remember.
And I was like, how are the Packers winning this game on the road? Really? And that just took the wind out of my sails. I was like, okay, And so there's still question marks, I think, on my end. Looking at Love, and maybe it is a little bit from the Bears perspective, and just kind of not wanting him to be good.
Yeah.
But he's shown just decision making and things like that are questionable. But I'd look at Fields and just the total package. If you get him in, the biggest thing, when you have a quarterback, you need to have an offensive coordinator that there's a trusting relationship, right?
Yeah.
And you have that obviously with Love,
Yeah.
and LaFleur, right? And you put Love in with the Bears now, and I'm sorry, but the Bears maybe win 4 or 5 games with Love, and
Okay.
that's not necessarily a shot at Love. All right,
Is
that's
that
not a
that's
shot.
more of a shot at kind of the surrounding environment?
It is. It's a shot at Getsy, and
Okay.
just and also you look at Love and Getsy, and I know everyone's kind of, especially today, been throwing back and forth the stats, right?
Yeah.
When you look at Getsy's offense, and it was even in that preseason game, I mean, it was on full display, with DJ Moore and the screens. Getsy is in love with the screens.
Yeah.
Fourth down, let's throw a screen. Hey, let's just throw a screen. And that's I get it. You want to use your playmakers, but they're throwing screens to they threw a screen to Cole Kmet and had I don't know if it was like Tyler Scott or a small receiver blocking for him. Like, really?
That's
Like,
not
some of
what you
these
want.
some of these play designs, it just does not make sense. And
Yeah.
so they've been afraid as well. They don't trust Justin to throw downfield, right? And that was even evident in training camp. So that's the big thing is just trusting your quarterback. And he proved that he could do it in the Minnesota game. Just let him rip it,
Yep.
and that's what I do like about LaFleur. And especially ever since the first game, I've been saying, I love LaFleur as a coach. He was like really willing to ride with Love, let him make the
Yep.
mistakes, and that helps a quarterback learn. Just let him rip it. And
Mm-hmm.
he's done that. He's put him in position to say, especially that against the Bears game, we're coming after you,
Yeah.
and whereas the Bears on the other side, defensively, Eberflus is coming after you. Like, I want that from my offensive coordinator, and I just don't think Love would translate with Getsy all that well, and that's
That's
why I think
fair.
Getsy needs to go. And when you look at Love, or we look at Justin Fields, just has that escapability that defenses have to account for, right?
Yes.
And so that extra dynamic, I love that for Fields. So I would not do that. And so, but a lot of it right now is Fields is still the potential, right? And,
Yeah.
Love is a little bit ahead of Fields, but I give that edge because of the offensive coordinator, in my opinion.
Well, and I would add to that and say the well, I mean, just their first 4 years in the league compared to each other is just not the same, right? I mean, Love
Mm-mm.
getting to sit behind Rodgers, and again, I said this, and not enough people acknowledge this. There have been other young quarterbacks like Rodgers sitting behind Favre, but there hasn't been a situation where you actually watch the guy in front of you win 2 MVPs. And
Mm.
then you take over. Like like with Favre, like he won the MVPs before Rodgers got there. And in other situations, I mean, I guess maybe like Garoppolo with Brady, but he didn't take over for Brady, right? He
Mm-mm.
moved on. And we can bring up Mahomes, but Alex Smith didn't win an MVP, not even
Mm-mm.
close. Great
Mm-mm.
guy, great mentor, right? And that worked out well. But Love actually saw this guy win 2 MVPs. And that to me that's just next level. Like that you're seeing the highest level of the game, and he got to see it top to bottom, right? We get to watch it on the field. We get little snippets maybe coming out of the locker room, but he got to see it from the weight room to the film room to the locker room to the practice field to the game field, back and that whole process more than once. And that's where I'm just like, dude, if you're not prepared at this point, well, what have you been doing?
Yeah, that having that, all that, like seeing that preparation and facing NFL caliber players for that extra year, and just the stability, I think that really has both done well for Love,
Yeah.
and just all of that. Obviously, as a Bears fan, I'm jealous, and
Yeah.
so obviously, especially online, I'm gonna try to find the holes in Love's game and everything like that. And
Fair enough.
um, when you look at these two players, I think they're different players, right? I
Yep.
think Love has he's shown that he can run, right, but that's not going to be his game.
Yeah.
And I think Fields, you just don't know what he's going to do when
Yeah.
and that's, you got to account for that. And it's the whole package.
Yeah. No, I agree. It is different. They are similar, I think, in a lot of ways. There's some similarities, but Fields is definitely a better athlete. I mean, he's shiftier. He has the edge, and he knows it. He knows how to use that to his advantage, and not necessarily to be Michael Vick, but to set up as a passer. And that was one of the things that was so sneaky about Aaron Rodgers that defenses ended up having a fit with was, he could get away, and then, he's setting up outside the pocket again to extend the play, and now your DBs are screwed because they can't cover that long. Nobody can. So, yeah, I mean, I can't fault you there. I think that's a pretty good explanation, actually. But I will say I enjoy that now we have a real argument in our hands here.
Well, and it's interesting, and on either side, on obviously on Twitter X or whatever, on social media, everyone's like, "Well, this player's better. It's not close." Well,
Yeah.
it obviously is close, and
Right.
I have to admit, I was watching that game closely in Week 17, the Packer game, and hoping that Jordan Love didn't throw his fourth touchdown pass, right? So that's what I'm still holding on to.
Hold on tight.
That Justin Fields has done that, and so that's why you can't give up on talent early. And obviously, we're
Yep.
in that kind of society. Every fan wants to see their team win, right now, right? You want to see players, win right now. But you can't just give up on a player because of the big thing is, let's restart the clock, right?
Yeah.
Restart the clock. Well, for what? You're restarting it, pushing back, what your team can do. I mean, it just, you have to let them develop, and you have to trust that your team has the right people to help them develop. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, like you look at some of these teams that have had the longevity. Obviously the Packers are right there, but even with the Steelers,
Yep.
and Mike Tomlin talked about, if players could learn better, you wouldn't need as many coaches, right? And just being able
Yeah.
to trust yourself as a coach, that you can help translate this, and use that talent. And that's one thing that the Bears have not, they failed Justin Fields, right? And when you have a talent, you don't try to coach that talent out of him.
Yeah.
And
That's
the
fair.
Bears have done that with Getsy. They've Getsy's tried to go away from Fields' talent, and no, you have to lean into that, and then kind of say, okay, well, this is what you can do passing wise, and you want to instill that confidence, and really, when you look at Love, I mean, he's got that. I mean, and obviously we don't know the conversations of what Fleur's saying, but it's not like win or else. It's
Right.
like perform, be
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And that's what you want to hear from coaches. And I believe the Packers have let Love be who he is, and unfortunately it's better than I thought.
Yeah, and I have definitely wanted to give LaFleur a lot of credit through this situation. I was very critical of Adam Stinovich earlier on, and I still don't think anything's changed there. I think LaFleur has just taken a little bit more control of that whole offensive system inside of the ball. And the way that I presented it on our other podcast, the Pack Weekly podcast, is it's kind of like if you just anybody who's got a regular corporate job, something like that. If you're in a position where either you're trying to get a promotion or you are trying to help your someone who reports you get a promotion, you're going to give that person, or you're going to take on increased responsibilities, right? You kind of want your boss to sort of let you take off without the training wheels, right? And I think that there was a little bit of that going on for Stinovich. It's like LaFleur's like, all right, dude, go ahead and ride without the training wheels a little bit. Let's see what you got. And it looked horrible, right? It was just this complete mess. Just these guys looked lost. They were making some of the most ugly mistakes. It was so some games this year for the Packers were as ugly as it can get in some cases. It was really bad. And that to me, that can be a lot of things, but when you see the light switch flip so dramatically, it's like, no, man. Somebody either had their hand on that and they took it off and then they put it back on. Yeah, that's what that is. There's no way that these guys are just like bumbling around like a bunch of idiots one week and then the next week they actually look like a top 5 offense. It's like, whoa, hold on a second. Now that to me is there's leadership things going on there that we won't get to know about. But I agree as far as just the macro situation around Jordan Love. It's more stable than most organizations can offer. And he has had every opportunity to learn the position from the top in the game before having to get thrown to the fire. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'm saying the same thing, right? Like if you're sending Justin Fields to me and I'm sending Jordan Love to you, I think I'm good. I think right now it's not that I look at Justin Fields and go, no, man, that's a step backwards for sure from Jordan Love. It could be. He could be. We got a long way to go with both of them. But for me, it's I see what Jordan Love is right now, and I want to see more of it. Like I want to see this continue to grow. I want to see what it looks like after another offseason, after you add another few pieces through the draft and maybe in free agency, after another year of LaFleur sitting down with him going, all right, man, how are we going to work on this? What were you struggling with here? Let's fix that. Those things, man, they add up, and the longer you can have that continuity, it's like exponential return on your investment. So I wouldn't want to mess with anything right now as far as Jordan Love is concerned, except maybe the offensive coordinator. That's kind of a hollow position at this point anyway. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at on that.
Can I ask you one question though? Flip it around on you.
Yeah.
So if the Packers have the number 1 pick, what would you do? Would you pick a quarterback or stick with Love?
Oh, no, I'm sticking with Love, and I'm either giving him a tackle, which I don't know that they need at this point. We're looking okay at the tackle position right now, especially if Bakhtiari really does intend to come back, which it sounds like he does. I think at that point my eyes are on Marvin Harrison Jr. We gotta get into the offseason and get a little bit more familiar with some of the prospects that are going to be out there. There's always, folks you learn about after the season ends that. But as things sit right now, and I do follow college football a little bit, so I'm not totally in the dark on who's out there. Knowing the Packers situation, if we had the hand of assets that the Bears have, where you're looking at that top pick, I don't see how it's anything except that Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't think there's like a dominant pass rusher that's like you can't pass that guy up. Usually that's what it is, right? At the top of the draft, it's a quarterback, it's a tackle, or it's like a pass rusher. And like those are the guys. It's like you just can't pass them up. You got to take them. And for me, I don't see it. I don't see maybe the tackle, right? Like maybe there's the offensive lineman you have to take, the kid from Notre Dame.
Alt, yep.
Yeah. But I think it's got to be Marvin Harrison Jr. I don't know how you look past that guy.
I would agree on that, and it is tough, right? Because like you have a similar sentiment. I mean, it's kind of like what right? I mean, do you know 100% that Jordan Love is going to be your quarterback for the next 10 years? We don't know that yet. Obviously, he's shown a lot this year.
Feeling good about it, yeah.
Right, you're definitely feeling good about it. But when you look at it, from a Bears perspective, Justin Fields has shown enough. that you continue to build on, right? You just keep building, put assets around him. But yeah, I mean, the other option that a lot of people are saying, well, do you trade Justin Fields? And the biggest thing with that is, hearing that maybe you get a second and a fourth round pick for Fields. If that, I mean, I believe that's what, second and fourth is what they got for Sam Darnold. When he was a
No,
hot
Fields is
commodity.
worth more than Sam Darnold.
I mean, that's kind of what I'm hearing is that, maybe he'll get a second, maybe he'll get a, fifth or fourth. Really, and obviously you can say, okay, well, I agree, he's worth a lot more. I think that number one pick is worth more because just that potential. I mean, and that's the thing too. You look at the trade for Fields, and I've heard also it's going to be all of the top quarterbacks in the draft. That's going to take some of the potential suitors away for Fields, right? Potential. Fields has shown that he can do it at the NFL level, but that blind potential of like, oh, we're salivating over this talent, this college talent, what he can be, and all that. I mean, we saw that with Bryce Young, right? The Bears got a haul for him, and Caleb Williams is better than him, right? Yeah. And so, like, I would rather have all those draft prospects and continue to build on Fields. Even if, as a Packer fan, you continue to you can't just, give up on a player and be like, oh, let's just start over. You look at the talent and then you trust yourself as a leader to say, I'm going to get the most out of this talent. Whether it's in business or football or whatever, I'm going to get the most. Do I trust myself to get the most out of this or not?
And that is, I think, a greater question that most of Packers Twitter has been really focused on this season. Because on the other side of the ball, you've got Joe Barry not getting the most, or seemingly not getting the most out of that talent. I think it's easy for most of us who've been paying attention to the Joe Barry era now to say you've seen those players play at an all-pro level, and now they've come down from that, and they're unhappy. It's like...
and they're undisciplined. I mean, even that last week 18 versus the Lions, how undisciplined. Yeah.
Undisciplined. And to me, that is a failure of leadership. That is just red hot flags and signs of a failure of leadership. Because again, you've seen these players not only play at an all-pro level, but be upstanding characters. You don't just go from all-pro upstanding character to, rotten guy in the locker room not playing well for no reason. So I really think that there's something going on there, and I think that that's one of the things that most of the Packers fans would like to see at this point is like, hey, man, there's a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball. Can we please do better than embarrassing? Can we do better than embarrassing? Because right now we're still embarrassed. And if I'm one of those all-pro players, and this was more my theory about Devondre Campbell than it was about Jair Alexander. I've been doing what I've been asked to do, right? I've shown up. I've had a smile on my face. I've played for my contract. We've done it, right? I'm not being a jerk in here. I disagree with some of these things in these defensive philosophies, but I've stuck to them. Sometimes they work. And now they're getting embarrassed. You're consistently seeing offenses know that they can shift into getting Preston Smith matched up on Justin Jefferson. Mm-hmm. And that is embarrassing, not just for a fan. It is also embarrassing for a player. Because you just the same as fans, we sit here and we're like, oh, man, I know this about my team. We're better than you in this way. Players are doing the same thing, man. They're watching film on each other, trying to figure things out. And when you get out there on the field and someone calls you out because they watched film and they know exactly what you're going to do, that's embarrassing, man. That is embarrassing because you were predictable now.
Well, that's just, I would say, yeah. I mean, that's what, Getsy has been versus the Packers. I mean, I had Getsy's first year last year. I think there was a play that, shout out to Average Cheese, the Packer podcast, Dale from there, great guy. He talked about that, how defense, they knew some of the plays that Getsy was going to run because he ran them right from the Packer, playbook. And what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
That's so embarrassing, man. It's same levels right there. And that's why I think it's easy for people to sniff that out and say, we don't want that anymore. Please give us better than that. and I don't even know how we got spun out on all of that topic there, but it was just Love versus Fields, and then their surrounding situations. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that we're at a point where a Packers fan and a Bears fan wouldn't trade quarterbacks, and we're pretty happy with what we have. I think that it's going to be an interesting offseason, though, because the Bears, like I said, Poles, he's got to make the right decision here, man, and it's not going to be an easy one, I don't think.
Yeah, I totally would agree. I mean, it's, you know, I get it. It's tantalizing to be like, okay, well, we've got this can't miss prospect, but you still never know. I mean, and you still have to put them in a right position and all of that. And so I get it. You know, you gotta. That's the biggest thing I think from a Bears perspective is, I totally understand. Exploring all options and considering taking Caleb Williams, because the problem is the previous regimes are, they didn't.
Yeah.
Going back to Patrick Mahomes, they didn't even bring him in for an interview.
Ooh,
Ryan
I
Pace
didn't
didn't
know
even bring him
that.
in for an interview. They just said,
Buddy.
"Nah, we're good."
Oh,
And that's the problem is you, even if you're not going to take him, bring him in.
yeah.
Find out who he is. Find out,
Yeah.
because he's going to be somewhere. And Ryan Pace just did not even do that. Even in the draft room, they said, Ryan Pace was, they took Trubisky and he was asking around. You had him up there, right? You had him up, and he just didn't trust himself. And you have to do
Yikes.
your due diligence. And so I understand the Bears, milking this for all they can and saying, maybe we will take it, and putting those stories out there. I do think they stay with Fields because of what they have, but you have to explore all the options,
You
and
do.
just that's what you need to do. And that's what a leader does. You don't just kind of, stick with one plan and say, oh, this is my plan, and I'm going to ignore everything else. You have to look at the whole picture.
Well, I'll say, and Jordan Love has definitely been, part of this the last few years. I am very much an in Goot we trust guy. Now, are you in Poles we trust here? Or you think he's going to make the right decision?
I do. And
Okay.
here's one of the reasons. One of the first things he did was to add an assistant general manager. As the Bears, we've never had that. The biggest thing, the Bears had been, right from the family to one of our money guys, and basically money guys making football decisions. And so Ryan Poles came in and he hired assistant GM Ian Cunningham, which I believe he may actually get a GM job this offseason. He's been fantastic, and so having that structure is there, and so that's, you look at that, and you look at Poles. He is a football guy, right?
Yeah.
He played right alongside Matt Ryan at
Yep.
BC. So I trust that he's going to be. And you just look at last year's draft with all the players that are starting to hit now, that are starting to really improve. Darnell Wright is just, he's been as advertised, and so I am trusting him. Now he's made some missteps, mainly on the wide receivers, right? The biggest one was the Chase Claypool stuff,
That was a
right?
bad one. Yeah.
And but you try to trust your building that you can, bring him in and he's going to do well. And obviously he didn't. He hasn't shown up in Miami either. So he's done.
Yeah.
But with the gift, of that number one pick, they got DJ Moore, and so we've started to get there. So I do trust Poles, not implicitly, right? But I am on Team Poles. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see, man. I think he's done a good job to this point. I do think that this season started off a little rough, and I was starting to question whether or not that was going to come together. But he's done a pretty good job to this point. The trade last year with Carolina was just masterful, and it's just only gotten better now.
Keeps on giving.
Keeps on giving. Well, let's get down to brass tacks here. What do we expect from this weekend? To hell with the rest of it. We're not planning for the future. We've got one game right now where the Bears can play spoiler to the Packers and keep us out of the playoffs. Do you, sir, think that you can get it done?
I do. And one of
Okay.
the biggest reasons is the Bears have shown time and time again that they can control the clock and run the football. Right. I think that's, you know, obviously we got rid of
It's
David
important.
Montgomery in the offseason, but you have running back by committee. Roshan Johnson has shown that he can be solid. Khalil Herbert is really getting healthy at the right time. Well, right now for the last game, he's starting to get healthy. Dante Foreman is, he's done what he's done every stop. He's been
He's
solid.
good. Yep.
And so in that offensive line, Darnell Wright, it's really starting to come in place and really been solid the last, few games of the season, right? And I think that's going to be huge to really control the line of scrimmage. We look at Fields, some of the things that he's been able to do escape, pressure and everything. And so I do worry a little bit about the Packers defensive front in the pass
It's
rush.
pretty
So
good.
that does worry me a little bit. But offensively, if we could just get away from the screens, I think, find ways to get DJ more the ball. Cole Kmet has really been a top 5, if not top 3 tight end. He's getting up there. He's showing that he's been worth his money. So offensively, I think that's going to be huge. Maybe doing some jet sweeps with Tyler Scott, some of these other younger players, just doing some different things, like, throwing on first down or whatever, just, trying to throw the Packers off a little bit offensively. And
Yeah.
defensively, it really starts and ends with Montez Sweat, with what he's been able to do, the pressure, and he's been as advertised. It's really opened some other things up to some other players like Javon Dexter. These players are really starting to show out. Even on the back end, you've got Jalen Johnson and Tyreek Stevenson. They're really having big years, but because of what Sweat has given to this defense, it's huge. And the linebackers, just the length of Tremaine Edmonds. Some of these, just in the middle to be able to block some of the passing lanes and things like that. And so I think the biggest thing, obviously, the running game. But then even, giving pressure to Love and forcing him into quick decisions and hopefully mistakes. So I think the Bears do pull it out. And I don't know. It's just tough to go, back and forth on what the exact score will be. But I think it's going to be like a 30-24
Okay.
game.
So some high scoring.
Yeah. I mean, I
Okay.
think the Packers are going to push the ball down the field, and just like they did in the first game.
Yep.
And obviously, I think they're going to get home, enough. I think Eberflus has learned enough from, some of his defensive plays and really how aggressive he is, that he's going to be able to get home enough. And maybe there's, a defensive score from the Bears that's going to help them as well. But
Okay.
yeah, so but when you look at it, I mean, on the ground and Fields on the ground, I believe the Packers are not as good against the run.
That's fair. Yeah.
So
Pretty
I do
stinking
think the
bad.
Bears are. I do think the Bears are going to win. I'm not as confident. Obviously, it's one of those things that, like, I'm sure, like, Lions fans, like week 18, you're like, oh, okay, and I'm sure you as Packer fans last year, like, oh yeah, we got this.
Yeah.
We got this. It's home.
I thought it was it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're going to run again. Yep.
Yep. So I'm not all that confident because it's on the road, but I do think the Bears can do that, and it's going to be. It's like I said, it's an important game because it can really turn things around. The narrative for the Bears, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll say this. I guess I'm not convinced of anything until I see something new. And so what I do see is an improved Bears defense and an offense with increased potential. But I don't see a running game that scares me enough that I think that it'll beat us. And I don't see, well, you're not putting out a third-string quarterback, so Joe Barry actually might stop Justin Fields.
I can see that, yeah.
He's played well against the good quarterbacks this year. It's the Danny DeVitos that we've got to, or the Tommy DeVitos that we've got to worry about. So yeah, I mean, Justin Fields being a somewhat familiar foe. Um, he's game planned well against him in the past. Just hasn't been a game where, at least in the last 3 years, where the Bears really, I don't know, just like really tested the Packers.
That's fair.
So if I'm looking for like what am I worried about as a Packers fan against the Bears, I would say the defense is vastly improved, but if anything, the strength of the Packers right now is the offense, and I have faith in LaFleur to be able to overcome those things that that defense might throw at them. So that's where I'm kind of like, well, where you guys have improved, we still should be able to overcome that. Really the thing that is just impossible to predict right now as a Packers fan, and because of that for you, is the defense, right? We just don't know what defense is going to show up. The Packers have a great stable of pass rushers, and they just sometimes don't use them. Now we've got the DBs getting healthy again. Jair's back, so you've got a defensive backfield to contend with there. You're not going to have DJ Moore just running free and having a heyday. So I just don't know what to expect from the defense. So I'm actually with you on the shootout. I'd like to see like a 38-35 game. I think that would be a lot of fun. I'm pro shootout right now because I want to see Jordan Love in those situations. Like, hey, man, you just drove it down the field. You scored. Great job. You got to do it again because they did the same thing. Aaron Rodgers had to do that for so many years. It feels like that's sort of a requirement for a Packers quarterback at some point. So I want to see him be able to do that. I wouldn't mind seeing a shootout here. And you know what? If you guys could go ahead and hang 50 on this defense just to ensure Joe Barry leaves, I'd be okay with that. We'll just see if Jordan Love and LaFleur could score 51. But yeah, I mean that's kind of where my head's at is for this game. Is I don't know what to expect from the defense. The offense should be able to perform against the Bears defense. I'm not going to say that. I mean, last year it was like the Bears defense was just so bad. It was easy to be like, I don't know. I mean, you should be able to hang 30 on them just for fun. Now you have a real defense there. So I'm like, I don't know.
See, and that's the thing too. I think obviously you talk about wins and losses and stats in a vacuum. When you look at having a defense that you can trust, and you're like, okay, they're going to do something. I think that helps the offense as well. Like mindset, mentality of like, okay, I'm sure as a player it has to get exhausting to be like, okay, we have to be we're the only ones that can do anything. I mean, I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan, right? And I knew, like, I even went to the Big Ten championship game, and I'm like, I know the offense isn't going to do anything. The defense is going to have to score every single game. That offense is not going to give you anything.
Yeah.
And I'm with you. Like, I mean, you want to be able to, have an offense that can score no matter what, that you're going to trust. Be like, okay, well, if this happens, if we're down by 14, 17 points. Okay, we can chip away at it, and we have that hope that we can, get that win. And so, yes, I mean, but when you look at offense and having a defense that's going to be able to at least perform, at least hold get some 3 and outs. I think that's going to be huge early on, right?
Yeah.
For the Bears, but also just that late game. Holding on. Like if the Bears can start early and get a lead and, at least, stick, 10-point lead or whatever. And, defensively, make Jordan Love, have to try to push the ball or force some things down, down the field, force it. I think that's where the Bears may have an advantage. But yeah, I'm not super confident like you either. And it's just like, even it's one of those things. Like it's a rivalry game, and a lot has happened. Good and bad for both teams. It's hard to predict what's going to happen. I mean, the Bears dominated the Lions twice.
Yeah.
I mean, dominated them, and so obviously it's you just don't know.
Yeah, very different teams from week one. Both of them are. Well, all right. So if there's one thing the Bears got to do to win this game, what is it?
Yeah, it's got to really contain the wide receivers, right? And
Okay,
that's huge. I
that's a good
mean,
one.
I think just keeping the wide receivers in front of the defensive backs, because I mean that's you know when you look at it, I mean that was the thing I looked at. Some of the losses is just letting the big plays happen, and just that takes the wind out of your sails for from a defense, and obviously from a team perspective as well. It's like, okay, wait, they can do this,
Yeah.
and so that's the one thing I would say.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one and the Packers have a full stable of receivers. It looks like for the first time this season. So you got a challenge on your hands with that
Well,
one.
especially if Watson,
Yeah.
is full go, yeah.
It looks like him and Musgrave. So those are two speedsters that you're going to have to contend with. Reed is there, Wicks. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting game, and I'm almost kind of nervous about that because it seems like LaFleur. I don't know why, but it seems like he does better when he's shorthanded. Like when he's got to figure it out with just these few guys, he puts together a game plan. We've seen it happen a few times now. And then when you get like your full stable, it's like, I don't know. It just sort of seems disappointing. So hopefully that's not the case. But yeah, that's a good one. You're right. And your DBs are starting to look good. They're starting to look capable of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously, it helps with the pass rush. I mean, that's the low hanging fruit, right? To say, okay, well, we need pass rush, we need get pressure on Love and everything. But yeah, I mean, those DBs. I mean, you have to go toe to toe. I mean, on the other
Yeah.
side of the ball, I mean, Jair coming back, they're going to do that, with more and everything like that. So you have to hold serve as well.
Well, I would say if there's one thing that needs to happen for the Packers to win, it's probably similar, but it's Justin Fields. Like you got to keep him running for his life. They need to be sending those pass rushers every play. They need to have him coming from all sides so that he doesn't know where they're coming from. Force him to run out and go into plan B, plan C, and then have your spy out there, Quay Walker, making sure he's not getting out and getting extra yardage with his feet. If you can do that, I think the offense should be able to outscore that Bears offense and win the game. But I'm excited, man. I love this rivalry. I've been kind of
I'm sure you
outspoken
do.
about that. I'm sure. Yeah, right. I bet 14-1. Since the last time we lost it. But no, I really
Yeah,
do.
I had a full mop of hair the last time the Bears won. So
I do. I love this rivalry, though. I don't like the Vikings, right? I just don't like the Vikings. And much respect to all the fans. I'm not here to just like talk bad about anybody who's a Vikings fan. Be a Vikings fan, whatever. I just don't like the Vikings. I don't enjoy playing the Vikings. I've never had any kind of respect for the Vikings. I don't know why. I can't explain it very well. But the Bears, it's like a brotherly thing almost, it feels like. I love this rivalry, man. And I think it's fun where both teams are at right now. They're in very similar situations. I think it's fair to say the Packers may have accomplished the rebuild quicker than the Bears. But I mean, the records are what, one game apart, I believe, right? We're 8-8, you're 7-9. So yeah, I mean, we're close right now, and I think it'd be cool to see these two teams being, at the top of the division, top of the NFC. And fighting each other in a true rivalry over these next few years, with the Love versus Fields and all that. But yeah, that's what I would say as far as the what it takes for the Packers to win, man. Any other thoughts about this game this week?
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, yeah, obviously you love the rivalry because the you've won, right? And
Sure.
it really, obviously the Packers didn't win the division last year, didn't win it this year. But even on the Freezing Four NFC North podcast, we talked about it. It really goes, you have to beat the Packers, and the Bears have beaten the other two in the division, and but not the Packers. And this is a hurdle that this team, obviously this quarterback, needs to get over. And I know you don't do this, but I just would not be able to stand another full off season of the "we own you," the transfer of ownership from Love and all that stuff. That just, I've gone on some Packer podcasts, where all I hear is the Bears still suck, and whatever, you got that. And so I was saying on the Freezing Four, I might, if the Bears win this week, I might have to make T-shirts that say Wisconsin is Bears country. So.
Oh, whoa, man! You might have to win a few of those in Lambeau before you go off doing that.
I'll take one.
But that's why I love this, man. I love this rivalry. There's just a fun banter to it. Even I'm just not in a hurry to go off and, hurt your feelings about all the times that the Packers have won. It's just fun. It's fun every single time to just talk about it. And the thing that's been fun about it is even in the years where one is, there's been years the Packers are bad and the Bears are good, and the rivalry game is still good. And vice versa. Bears are bad, Packers are good, rivalry game is still good. I will never forget this, and I'll bring this up now just as a little bit of a counterbalance, and Miguel will appreciate this if he's found his way into listening to this. I'll never forget the game, the Thanksgiving Day game. I guess it was 2016. When the Bears marched into Lambeau with a garbage roster and we were retiring Favre's number, putting him up, putting his number up on the thing. I was there, and it was some of the worst weather I have ever attended a football game in, because
it was raining, wasn't it? Was it raining?
Yeah, for like 5 hours straight,
yes,
and it was 34 degrees. It just for the whole time we're sitting here thinking, surely this will turn to snow anytime. Nope, never did, and we were just soaking wet. So, yeah, just a miserable game. Lost that. The Packers had all sorts of reasons to be good that season. The Bears did not, and lo and behold, what happens? That's why I love this rivalry, man. It's just it's loaded with moments like that. And I hope that this is another good one. I certainly hope that the Packers win, obviously, and come out on that side of it. But it's a classic rivalry, man, and I love that it is. And we could talk about it being fun because we've won, but if that were the case, I mean, we could all just pick on the Lions, because this is the first time, since 93. Good Lord. I think this is like the second time in my lifetime that the Lions have made the playoffs.
They'd never won the NFC North. It was the NFC Central.
Yeah, that's right. My goodness. There's some minds just exploded like, wait, what? There was something before NFC North? Yeah, so we could pick on that, but that hasn't been a fun rivalry. Mm-mm. I don't know who the rivals are with the Lions.
But yeah, it's really, they really haven't, because they haven't been as relevant, right? Obviously I've lived in Minnesota and I've lived in Wisconsin, and so I had a chance to be on see both rivalries, and really, the Minnesota one, it's not quite there because Minnesota hasn't won anything, right? And they don't have that, I have to say, that arrogance, right? And I get it, Packer fans, you have that because you've won. You've had these quarterbacks that have, carried you through, right? And so I think it is just a different rivalry when you have a team that's kind of been the standard bearer, and I don't like to admit that, but obviously when you have these storied rival teams, you want to beat your OG rival, right? You just want to beat that. That's
right.
That's where it's at, and
yes,
and especially the NFL was smart, and they knew what they were doing. Week 1, week 18, Bears Packers. They knew what they were doing.
They knew. Yeah, and it was funny. I made that comment on our one of our most recent podcasts on the Packers Weekly that if you had been given the NFL script this year, because it's scripted, of course, you wouldn't have believed it. Packers fans wouldn't have believed it if you would have been handed what Jordan Love has done, and you wouldn't have believed it. And so that's why, they knew they know what they're doing out there. They've They've done a very good job of creating the drama and all of that, and I'm grateful that they put the Packers and the Bears at the center of it.
I'd say even if both teams were terrible this year, right?
Yeah,
Week 18 would have meant something
yeah,
regardless.
yeah,
So I mean that was the smart thing to do. Absolutely.
for sure. Well, Andy, I think we've hit all the topics, man. I don't know that we had any heated debates like maybe somebody would be hoping for between a Packers and a Bears fan. But I certainly enjoy it, man. I enjoy the back and forth. Respect the heck out of the work that you do. You're always hustling, and as I said before, it's always fun to come on the Freezing Four. So it's good topics there. Anybody that's listened to this, definitely check out Andy NFL Outdated there on Twitter and YouTube, and he's got the Freezing Four podcast and some other stuff that he's been doing. But it's always a lot of fun and good, healthy football topics that we get entertained by on Twitter and all of that. And, we might as well take these conversations as deep as we can on these podcasts, right?
Absolutely, and yeah, feel free to hit me up on social media, comment, and all of that stuff. I am I've got thick enough skin to take it. I don't take it too seriously, but definitely like to push some buttons. Some people take it a little bit too serious. I'm like, it's football, right? And we'll see how I'm doing on Sunday. But like I said, I live in Wisconsin, and my kids are Packer fans. Actually, AJ Dillon.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I got an AJ Dillon jersey for my son for Christmas. So
Good one.
he'll probably be wearing that on Sunday. But I mean, that's the thing, it's football. It's not life, right?
Right.
We get frustrated by it and mad by it, but you get over it. And then it's on to next season. I mean,
Yes, sir.
Obviously the Bears will be on to next season regardless on Monday. It's just will be a good note or a bad note. I'm hoping it's a good note by 6 points.
We'll see. Yeah, I see you Bears by 6. He's had it up there the whole time, y'all. He's sticking to it. No, I agree, man. I hope that we're on the other side of that and in a victory formation and headed into the playoffs. But either way, I think we've got some entertaining off seasons ahead for both teams here, and both teams seem to be heading in an upward trajectory. So that's healthy for the rivalry and maybe healthy for this podcast. Because, like I said, I'm glad that we could jump back in and do this. It's something about these two teams, man. They are the OG rivals in all of sports. All you Michigan, Ohio State folks, step aside. It's too much fun to talk about, and so we had to do this. Depending on how the game goes, we might have to dive in again next week and see where we're at. But I appreciate you, Andy, for jumping in with us, man. And like I said, y'all check him out. Check out the content he's putting out there. Check us out on the Packers Weekly podcast. We're coming at you streaming live every Monday evening during the season and in the off season. We're gonna go through the draft stuff. We're gonna be doing it. Andy, I know you are too, right? No days off.
And I'm actually going to Detroit for the draft, so I got my hotel already set up for that. I went to Kansas City. It was a great experience, and going to continue it on as well. So
right on.
Love going to the draft. So
right on. That's awesome, man. We'll have to stay in touch. I'd love to hear it with the experiences there. And of course, we got to one up it up there in Green Bay in 25.
Hey, I'm actually planning on going there as well. I've got friends that live a few blocks from Lambeau, so
heck yeah,
that's gonna be it's gonna be nuts. So absolutely,
that'll be fun. That's gonna be a good time. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they host that. It'll be a good time. But we might have to jump back into this, man, and have a little off-season conversation, see how things are going, and what's going on with all the draft drama at the top there, and all of that. But hey, let's have some fun this weekend. Win or lose, the Wisconsin folks say we still booze. And so, above all, let's have some fun. Enjoy the fact that we still have some Packers and Bears football in front of us. We're not in the dead space of the offseason where we just got to speculate. We get to watch real football still. So enjoy it, folks. And, hey, please come back and see us on the next installment of this podcast, whenever it may be. I'm not going to make any promises. But appreciate y'all for checking us out. I will sign us off with a go Pack go, and certainly give Andy a chance to give his Bears cheer out.
Da Bears.
Da Bears. There you go. I thought you were gonna give him a bear down.
I was going to say that, but gotta go with Ditka.
Ditka is God, right?
In Chicago, yeah.
Love it.